Start with the wrong one. All right, forum. How you doing? How you be? Top to the AB. Oh my God, I can hear myself. Hold on, give me a second. Why can I hear myself? How you doing? How you be? Top to the AB. Oh my God, I can hear myself. Hold on, give me a second. Okay, what about now? Oh, I know why. I know why. It has nothing to do with it's because I have these running. Give me 1 second. I know why. It has nothing to do. 1 second. Noob. Okay. All right. Forum. How you doing? How you be? Top to the AB. And this is going to be kind of a live streaming series where I troubleshoot technical support issues. Over time, it will get a little bit easier and better to do as I take like live calls and stuff like that. But I wanted to basically start today and actually just start anything really, but today mostly just to get my feet wet and just get a better understanding of how I want to do things and how I want to proceed. And the subjects that I can pretty much troubleshoot don't really have a limit because I've pretty much troubleshoot everything in my career. I've been doing technical stuff for as long as I can remember, probably since I was like maybe 6 or maybe 7. I think I was 7 or 8 when I got my first computer. But in any event, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create kind of a channel where I kind of troubleshoot things and kind of keep myself up to date when it comes to troubleshooting and stuff like that, because that knowledge, I don't want to lose it over time, and I want to create a situation where I can use it to help people and make everybody else very, very good at troubleshooting. The goal is to get everybody to be better than me when it comes to troubleshooting. So hopefully I can reach that goal. And yeah, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. Let me make sure everything is right on the frames and the drops and stuff. I think everything is okay here. Just checking everybody, making sure everybody's good. Yeah, everybody looks good. Okay, cool. And the camera looks good too. All right, look at you. You're doing well. Okay. All right. So what I'm gonna do, ideally, I want to get to a point where I can take calls from people in the chat or people just asking questions in chat, as well as callers that are coming in. The calling thing, we'll see. Obviously, I'll have to grow first in order for that to happen. But as of right now, I'm not too worried about it. Right now, I have a few questions that have been submitted on Reddit that I can actually show and try to troubleshoot and try to give you an understanding of my thought process of how I think through things for a couple of issues. I'm not sure how long this is going to last. It should have actually started at 8, but I was running a little late, so I do apologize for that. But yeah, let's get started. So, alrighty. So I hope you guys can see that. I think you can. So, alrighty, so basically it says the most bizarre technical issue I've ever had. Oh, you have no idea. Hi, so the writer writes Big Chungus Big Funbus. All right, nice name. So as the title states, this is my most bizarre issue I've ever had. My PC keeps freezing, but I've noticed it only happens when I roll my desk chair away from my desk. I already know what this is. I already know what this is, but I'll continue. I can never get the issue to replicate by purposely rolling back, but it's been happening quite frequently for the last 2 weeks. That would make sense. And at first, I only noticed it was happening when I was away from my computer. I would step away from my computer for whatever reason and come back to a frozen screen. Okay. By the last 10 or so times it's happened, I've noticed it happens as I'm pulling my chair out and stepping away from the computer. I don't consider myself to be super tech savvy, but I know enough that when these issues happen to give the PC a clean update drivers and monitor temps. I've done everything and it's normal. My tech savvy friends either think I'm talking crap or that it's a very strange coincidence. I considered potential vibration, there you go, that's exactly what I was thinking, and try replicating with no results. Has anyone seen it? Yes, I've seen something like this before. All right, so let's think about what he's talking about. He's saying that when he pulls his desk back or his chair back from his desk, it creates a situation where it locks up his screen. Generally, when you have those kind of situations, the first thing I think of is static electricity. When I used to run miners, I used to have like a bunch of graphics cards, but the way I set them up, I used to have them out in the open. So in other words, they weren't in cases or they weren't in boxes or anything like that. They were literally on a string and they were just hanging up on a pole. And every time I would brush by it or move by it with socks on, it would reset them. It would trigger the motherboard and it would reset them because the static electricity was so strong that it would just me touching the metal would be enough to make the actual cards themselves restart. And it happened quite a while until I started going around it, or every time that I got ready to work with my graphics cards, I would use anti-static gloves, and that actually fixed it. So ideally, what I would say is either A, you may have carpet and your carpet is generating static electricity, your computer may be on the ground. If your computer is on the ground, and you have carpet, or if you have hardwood floors and your computer's on the ground and there's nothing protecting it, in other words, there's no feet, and usually feet are rubber dampened, and so rubber dampened just for the vibration, but the rubber actually helps with the static electricity. But if it's a direct line of current between your computer and the floor, then you rolling away with metal rollers is enough to cause your computer to seize up. That shock of electricity, because you're basically, think of this as kinetic energy. So your rollers rolling back is enough kinetic energy to create a static electricity friction that can basically make the computer freeze. And I've seen that happen every now and then with my graphics cards, but it's something to definitely look at. So the first thing I would think of is your settings. How do you have your world set up? Is your computer on the floor? If it is on the floor, try to put it above on a table. Wood is pretty much a non-conducive when it comes to electricity, or just putting it someplace out of the way. Or now if it's on a table, then all bets are off. But this is just going under the assumption that your computer is actually on the floor. So that's the first thing that I would check. And then he said, I don't consider myself a super tech savvy. I've considered possible potential vibrations and try replicating. The only other thing that I can think of with that kind of a situation is that you may have a cord loose, but it doesn't. My PC keeps freezing, but I've never noticed it only happens when I roll away my desk. I can never get the issue to replicate purposely by rolling back. Right. Okay, so because he cannot get the issue to replicate by rolling back, it may not be a cable issue, because it almost makes it sound like it's random. And because it's random, I'm going to stick with my first answer of static electricity. I would step away from the computer for whatever reason and come back. Either static electricity or a shortage. And by a shortage, I mean somewhere on his desk or something for it to go to that screen. It's a possibility. So what I'm thinking about is, whenever I was talking about a shortage, there is a possibility that you may have audio devices or USB devices that are plugged into your computer that may be drawing a bit of power or too much power, and that may be shorting the device. But generally, you rolling your chair around wouldn't actually do that unless you were actually pulling out some type of a cord. So in other words, like let's say you were rolling back and every time you roll back, you had a certain style. Typically, when people do things over and over and over again, they have a certain style to it. So you may be doing something where you're pulling against something. So if you're pulling, in other words, if I'm trying to roll back and I'm rolling back, and I may push this inadvertently, and pushing that inadvertently, that may be pulling on a cable, and that cable can be pulling away. And when it pulls away like that, it's a possibility that can create a short or a shortage on the motherboard, which can then in turn freeze the computer. So those are the main two things I can think of. Hopefully that will help. Okay, I'm just checking the chat to make sure that that works. But those are the two things that I can think of. Hopefully that can help. Let me know. Chungus, I'll put this video on there, and hopefully that will help you with your issue there. So good luck to you, my friend. Let's go to the next one here. Alrighty, so this is from IceRom. Hey, something I can actually pronounce. We're getting good at this. All right, let's do this. Can 3600 RAM run with a CPU that supports only 3200? Yes. You would just basically choose the highest it can go. My new PC is not booting. Oh well. Let's continue. I recently bought the motherboard, CPU, and RAM suggested in the budget all-arounder suggested here. Okay. Unfortunately, on a first attempt, the computer didn't boot or even send any display to the monitor. Okay. The tech who was helping me with this said that the RAM was the problem, as my CPU only supported up to 3200 and the RAM sticks are 3600. However, doing a little web research, I'm not so sure this is true. I would agree. There are situations like I've had motherboards, like particularly the Mini ITX motherboard. So I don't know what kind of motherboard you're having, but I've had situations where the Mini ITX motherboard has a restriction on the actual RAM that you can utilize, and it will nerf anything above that. So like there was a situation where the Gen 7 Intel CPU motherboards with Mini ITX motherboards, they would not allow you to have, oh sorry, it wasn't Intel, it was AMD. It was the AMD Ryzen platforms. The original motherboards when they first came out, I think it was like Gen 2 or something like that, those Mini ITX motherboards, they wouldn't allow you to have a certain speed of RAM. So it was one of those kind of situations, and it would nerf whatever speed you had, but it wouldn't reject the RAM. But you may notice situations where it could be issues, but it never would affect boot. So let's keep on reading. When using slower RAM, the computer did appear to send display to the monitor, although the display remained blank. With the 3600, it displayed a nothing connected sort of message. Okay. The tech believes that the BIOS might need to be updated before it could even boot, so he'll try to get it to boot with an old processor. That'll happen later today, but he says I'm going to need new RAM sticks anyway, and that I should return the ones I have. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself, but could it be an old BIOS that is also not allowing the 3600 sticks to work? Even though I asked about the RAM in particular, any suggestions about the whole thing would be appreciated. Okay, so with this one here, I typically do not believe that having 3600 RAM and a 3200 a motherboard that only can support 3200 megahertz, I don't think that is a problem. It never has been a problem. Generally, it'll just nerf it down to whatever the motherboard can support. So I don't believe that. However, if you just bought it and you only have maybe 2 days to return it, then go ahead and return it. Because and then just get something a little bit less. I don't think I'm not even talking about the issue at this point. I'm just saying I would do something like that, because you don't even want to risk it if you're getting close to your return policy. Now, throwing that out the way, and we're not even talking about a return policy, no, I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that having 3600 megahertz of RAM on a 3200 motherboard that can support 3200 megahertz is even a problem. But your issue here does not sound like a RAM issue. It sounds like a graphics card issue. I wonder what kind of processor you are trying to use. It sounds like, I'm not sure about the Ars Technica. I can click on it, but I'm afraid what may happen because I just set everything up. Depending on the processor, you may have a processor with integrated graphics. So what I would try to do is remove the graphics card from the motherboard and then boot the PC with integrated graphics and an HDMI cable going into your computer, going into a PC, or I'm sorry, into a monitor that is 1080p, not 4K, 1080p. Okay, that way you eliminate any other potential issues that could cause this problem outside of the motherboard. Okay, and maybe power supply, but outside of the motherboard, because power supply is pretty obvious. If it doesn't turn on and you don't hear anything, then then there you go. But it sounds like from what you're telling me is that only supports blah 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 blah. He said, okay, when using, okay, he only said the display remained blank. He never said the device didn't boot. So we're not talking about power supply here as of right now. We're either talking about motherboard, graphics card, CPU, or memory. So in this case here, I would say go with the graphics card, bypass the graphics card, hook directly up into the back of the motherboard with an HDMI cable to a 1080p monitor, and see exactly what you get. Hopefully that will point you in the right direction. If it gets you a picture, then you have an issue with your graphics card. I would try to plug it into a different PCIe slot and see if that resolves the issue. Now, of course, plugging it into a different PCIe slot can change the speed of what it can do. But if we're talking about newer motherboards these days, the bandwidth that they can handle is so far and above. Like, as long as it's, PCIe 3 X16 or even maybe 8. As long as it's something like that, you're perfectly fine. So I would say plug it into a different PCIe slot if it turns out that it is because of the graphics card, and see if that resolves it. Otherwise, it's just a bad graphics card. Now, if it's not the graphics card and you plug it into the integrated graphics and you get a picture and it's also not the graphics card, well, okay, well, if that was the case, then I don't know what to tell you. But if you didn't get a picture with the CPU or the graphics card, then I'm thinking about the motherboard at that point. Then I'd be like, okay, we may want to take a look at the motherboard and see if the motherboard is having issues. Now, what interests me is that he was saying that you need to get to the BIOS, might need to be updated, but how can you get to the BIOS when you can't see it? So, I guess we're gonna hit him, but could it be an old BIOS? No, I definitely wouldn't say it would be an old BIOS, because did you try older sticks of RAM? Sticks of RAM anyway, and I should return the ones I have. Like, unless you're trying to fight a long line, I mean, trying older sticks is a possibility. But I think the tech that was doing it, he said the tech who was helping me said that the RAM was the problem, as my CPU only supported. However, yeah, whenever we use slower RAM, the computer did appear to send display to the monitor, blah, blah, blah. Whenever we use slower RAM. Oh, okay. So they tried slower RAM. So why would it just doesn't make any sense. Why would a tech tell you to use slower RAM when you plug in slower RAM and it still doesn't work? In other words, you've already tried that and it didn't resolve the issue, so the issue doesn't seem to be RAM. Now, of course, the issue got better, so that's the reason why he may say something like that, but still, that's kind of a leap. So I wouldn't go with that. I would say, if it's brand new RAM, and you still are within warranty, or you're still within, like the 14 days or whatever it is in your area, then go ahead and take it down to 3200. But as far as the issue goes, yeah, I would say graphics card. Yeah, I would say graphics card. And if it's not graphics card, I would say motherboard. And if the CPU doesn't give, it could also be the CPU, but it's going to be one of those three. I would say graphics card, maybe 80%. CPU and motherboard, maybe 10%, maybe 12% CPU, 8% motherboard. It really kind of depends on what happens if you have integrated graphics and you plug directly into the computer. But yeah, though, that is my take on that. So hopefully that helps out. Let me know how that works out. And yeah, let me go to the next one here. This is fun. I don't get to do this often. I like it. I like talking tech, but I just kind of stay very, very quiet and don't talk to myself because I don't want to just badger people with knowledge about technical issues. It usually doesn't go well. So let's do the next one here. All right. Currently having frame drop / freezing randomly while playing intensive games. I got a new PC. By no means it's a great rig. Oh, I'm sorry. This is from Alternate Dimension Z. What's up, Alternate Dimension Z? If I could actually say that 3 times fast. Currently having frame drops, freezing randomly while playing intensive games. I got a new PC. By no means it's a great rig, but it should handle all the games I play without an issue, my man. As it does 80% of the time. However, if I am playing a game there are a bit intensive or having more detailed graphics, out of nowhere, every few 20 to 30 minutes, I get periods of intense freezing of varied durations. Oh, I apologize. I apologize for him. Mute that. How do I? Oh, okay, there we go. Phone was tripping earlier. Okay, I apologize. Where was I at? More graphics. Out of nowhere, every few 20 to 30 minutes, I get periods of intense freezing of varied durations. It can last from 5 to 10 minutes, then afterwards is back to normal for a while until the freezing comes back. Only on intensive games, and it freezes on you. The freezing consists for about 15 to 20 frame drops intermittently, and also surprisingly my ping spikes slightly between 20 and 25 milliseconds. Your ping spikes? So if your ping okay. First off, 20 to 25 milliseconds as a ping is not bad at all. Okay, let's say, ideally when you ping Google or something like that, you're going to see about 14 milliseconds. But even 20 to 25 isn't nowhere near to the level of actually dropped latency or latency in a packet. So let's say you're connecting to a game, and because he's saying pings, I'm guessing it's an online game. So let's say Call of Duty or something like that. Typically, you're going to be somewhere around 67 milliseconds, depending on how close the server is to you. So let's say you're at 67 milliseconds, and he's saying he's adding 20 to 25 milliseconds. That will put him at 87. He's still within range. So I don't think he's actually dropping because of that. Because that latency there, that's not going to be enough to cause anybody. Now, of course, you may miss a shot, but it's not going to be enough to cause anything at only 87 milliseconds. The freezing is not just on the game, which makes sense. Because what we're talking about, I don't think it's latency. The freezing is not just on the game, as alt tabbing to check other things made me notice it's my whole PC having these small freezes. Moving windows around makes it more noticeable. Yeah. However, these freezes never happen while playing less intensive games like Dota 2, or while just using my PC normally to browse Chrome. I have no clue what's going on, and I appreciate any help can provide with the necessary information about the rig too if needed. Whew, okay. That one is interesting. Of course, you can say the obvious, graphics card, driver update, stuff like that. I would lean towards driver update. Now, here's the thing. He's saying that when he plays games like Dota, he doesn't have this problem, but if he was to play something a little bit more intensive, what's more intensive than Dota? Dota's pretty non-intensive, so let's say Tomb Raider or something like that, or just some game that's on Steam that can go online that's high graphics, like Lost Ark or something. So let's say when he plays a higher end game, it has to be an online game that he's playing, but regardless, I don't think it's latency that he has a freeze. Now, I originally thought whenever he was talking about his freeze, I was thinking about his what was it? His frame rate of his monitor. Like, for example, if the graphics card, oh God, what's it called? My mind just went blank. I can find it. Give you 1 second. Hold on. Let me get back to the NVIDIA settings. Oh God, why am I? My brain just went nowhere. What is going on with you, boy? Hold on 1 second. My brain will get better, I promise you guys. This is my first episode. Let's see. Oh, sorry, my mouse is going crazy on me. Okay, there we go. Okay, so originally I was thinking about something along the lines of G-Sync or refresh rate. Good God. So G-Sync or refresh rate. I was thinking that maybe the refresh rate was having an issue. But the way you made it seem like if I'm playing 20 to 30 minutes, detailed graphics out of nowhere. 20, 30, I get periods of intense freezing. Like the screen is freezing. Well, how much RAM do you have? And I'm not even talking about GPU RAM. I'm actually talking about CPU RAM in this situation. Let's say you have monitor set up, but you only have, like, let's say 4 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM because you're running it on a laptop. There's a possibility that when you play a more intense game, the game is adding to the memory plus everything else that you're doing, and that is what's causing you to freeze, because that would make more sense, right? Because let's say if it was a graphics issue, well, generally if it's a graphics issue or a driver issue or something like that, then it would affect pretty much most games that you play. Now, it can be like maybe if it's a new game that just came out that doesn't have the driver for that, then okay, we can argue that point because we don't necessarily know what game he's playing. But memory just sounds right in this situation. In other words, maybe whenever he starts playing this higher end game, because it's using more memory or more paging, that it is utilizing more RAM and thus freezing up his screen, so that when he, tries to do anything else, even try to get out of the game, everything is kind of frozen and slow, and it only lasts for about 20 to 30 minutes, which is the typical time before the RAM starts to get rid of some apps and stuff like that. So it may be one of those situations where he may be getting dangerously close to the amount of RAM he has. So I would actually say in this situation, I would rank RAM over driver update. Or downgrade, depending on, NVIDIA. There have been situations where you may need to upgrade or downgrade depending on the situation. So I would say RAM first. Check the RAM and see how much RAM you have and see where your utilization is, because if you start a game when your RAM is at 85% utilization and then you play the game, well, the game has a tendency, even though it's going to utilize GPU RAM, it's a possibility that it may also utilize some of your CPU RAM, thus putting you over. So I would say look at your RAM utilization, especially if it's like a laptop or something like that. He says a new PC. Well, even new PCs, like there have been situations where I've seen new PCs only have like 8 gigs of RAM. I'm not even sure how old this is. Well, it was posted 54 minutes ago, so the RAM is starting to get less and less ideal. But I would say 50-50 RAM or driver with this one here. Now, RAM driver, also try a different type of impactful game. Like, don't just try one game, try multiple ones, and see if those multiple games also give you the exact same issue. That would be interesting to see exactly where the point is. And also try to lower the settings of the game, like the graphics settings, to low, and see if that makes a difference. Okay, because it's a possibility that it could be video memory. In other words, the graphics card itself is kind of going out, so maybe there is... So, graphics cards, memory in general, memory has basically what's called ECC, or error correctable memory. So basically, it corrects errors in the memory if it can. Graphics cards can have this, but not consumer graphics cards. That's usually in the professional state. So it's possible that you could be running into issues. You can see this if you were running into issues by going into your event viewer and looking at hardware. Looking at hardware and seeing if you see anything. If you see anything under the event viewer under hardware, then you can kind of go by there and then take it from there and kind of look those guys up. So I would say check event viewer just to make sure there's no hardware issues, because it could be that the RAM on your graphics card may be kind of getting towards the max. So I would recommend but I mean, it's still, we're talking about memory, but it's either motherboard memory or GPU memory. But either way, I would recommend like a GPU Z or CPU Z in order to take a look at the graphics card memory and the motherboard memory, and then just kind of take it from there. If the memory of either the CPU or the GPU is starting to get towards the top whenever you play these kind of games, then you may be looking to upgrade either one or the other. I would look at those first, because that's the easiest to check. All you have to do is just start the game up, play a few times, see it when it freezes, and then look over to GPU Z or CPU Z and see where your memory at for your graphics card and see where your memory is at for your CPU, and go by there. And then if they're both within range, let's say the one is like 40% and one is like 60%, then go with the driver update. Yeah, that is what I would do for that one. I hope that helps alternate dimension Z. And that is it. I'm not sure how long that took, but that's like 3 different issues, rapid fire. So I think that went pretty well. I'll cut these up and then turn them into actual videos, but I'm liking this. Okay, so I've been going for 30 minutes. So yeah, that was only 30 minutes. We'll probably work multiple issues, but I just wanted to do kind of just 3 to just get my feet wet and see exactly how I feel about it. But this worked out pretty well. Hopefully, in the future, I can also answer questions live and help others live. But so far, so good. And yeah, that's going to be the end of this stream. Thank you guys so much for watching, even though no one watched yet. But some people will watch in the future, and I guarantee you that. And, oh my God, I forgot my own outro. That's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, go ahead and like button. If you really like it, go to subscribe. I love you either way. Take care. All the best. And bye. There it is. There it is. Woo.